Hey, in this video, I want to talk to you about the closing of the Just This episode 2, Truth Within Frustration with Anais. So, because this is a new journey for me with this podcast, only after the second episode, I want to reflect and share my reflections with you guys after the closing of each episode. Now, Truth Within Frustration has been a really interesting and challenging episode on a number of levels for me personally. First of all, touching on the aspects of the creative process and discussion between me and Anais. I was so honoured to be able to be present and witness her going through a process that evoked such powerful, personal and deep memories around the loss of her father. I really had no intention for what kinds of material or content would come through in the justice process. However, to see it being a place and a space where feelings, memories, emotions and the ability to process things of this magnitude can happen is really heartwarming and also personally fulfilling. I think it's unquestionable that the process that we went through was healing for both of us. And ultimately, with the resolution in the final verse, where Anais speaks about spirits and love, she weaves a wonderful narrative of this eternal, infinite connection that she has with her father, and ultimately ends up in a very joyful, open and celebratory place, having come from those depths of sorrow and broken glass that she shared about at the beginning. So for me, this is really a wonderful journey and fruition that came from the process. And the poem really anchors that emotional journey for everyone that reads it. So I think this is really significant, and I'm really happy that this came through, not only for how it was personally relevant, significant and healing for Anais and I, but also how this deeper meaning of grief, loss, suffering and a path to resolution and healing is carried on in the words and the poetry that came from our time together in the creative process. And then equally, for this to be able to be opened and unpacked and shared about so candidly in our discussion was really lovely. As I was watching it the other day, actually doing some editing, looking for some sound bites, I was just fast forwarding and it was just so wonderful to see the beautiful chemistry and relational dynamic that existed between Anais and myself during this discussion. Personally, I found it to be extremely heartwarming and connected and fun as well at times. It wasn't just about this talking about and reflecting on this deep dark process. It was this kind of this supported place of joyful connection and sharing, within which we could go into those depths and explore the darker side of life, but we could also just use this awareness and this ability and this what I like to call what's the so yeah, I've made up this term but I can't remember it now, but it's it's what I like to call soul-cabulary. You know, we both really exhibited this capacity to know and share and be present in the darkest aspects of our lives, and then that also came through to the way that we could and can joyfully interact and bring this lightness, this equal and opposite lightness, joyfulness to the aspects of our lives like surfing and creativity and arts. And somehow these two polarities work so well together as a means of processing and developing and healing trauma that's so wonderful. So another thing I want to touch on is just how the details of Anais's story come through very clearly in our discussion. However, for me, as we went through, you know, the grieving delicately and the verses and the aspects of the process that were very dark and were going over much pain, I too also journeyed with her on this deeper, darker journey myself. And I think that's what's quite fascinating, and what's really hitting me about this experience of the justice process is, you know, I was reflecting on the mental health problems that I had when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and reflecting on this as you know, like a real kind of like dark point, a real underscore, a real scar in my life, and how, for want of a better word, I've carried these reactions, I've carried these feelings, this pain, this suffering, this kind of feeling of there's something being wrong with me throughout this time, and even still within the last few years, despite the fact that I've done work around it. But there was something so freeing and so cathartic about the two of us being in and holding this awareness of this grief, of this loss, of this dark place that we both felt in our lives, and safely inhabiting these emotions together in that place. And whilst our particular stories were completely different, somehow this companionship, this energetic resonance, this emotional coherence and this emotional empathy that we shared, coming from two very similar emotional places with very different stories, was quite wonderful. That we were able to go there, revisit it together, and hold this group connection, this group energy, and then process and move through it together. And you know, even though during the poem process what we were saying was, you know, not explicitly related to the stories we had, somehow being able to create and express words whilst holding this shared emotional place was so enriching for me, and so liberating. So when I look back at the video, I'm really proud of myself for being able to go into this place. Even though no one knew that's where I was going, I was still going there, and I was still expressing authentically from that place. And so that's something that I really cherish and hold as a personal aspect of this process. So if you aren't familiar with the full details, I urge you to go and watch the episode Truth Within Frustration with Anais and myself, and you'll get an idea, and especially in the discussion in the second half of the episode, of what went down. And so another thing that I want to just mention briefly is, you know, a massive thanks to our hosts for the venue, Janet and Ralph Hogan, with their beautiful place Saratoga here in Bali. So grateful for their interest, their accommodating us on the day. And as you can see from the video, it's literally breathtaking there. So if you are looking for a space in Bali for whatever it may be, a wedding, an event, or a retreat, I highly recommend speaking to them. And if you can't find them, then contact me directly. So another thing I want to touch on is the one-off limited edition NFTs from this episode are now available on OpenSea. So check the description of this video for those details. And it's really nice for myself to push this forward. I feel like these NFTs really encapsulate this depth of experience and this meaningful healing journey that we went on, and each one really represents the moment where this was able to materialize and come through, where these truths from our frustrations, we allowed them to emanate, we allowed them to come through. And I really think that's what's so beautiful about this. As works of art, it is really something special to see a human being bearing their soul and courageously and authentically expressing what's really there for them on an emotional level, and especially when it's a difficult emotion and when it's something really challenging to talk about. So I encourage you to go and check those out. If you're a collector, please collect them. Every episode will be putting out a limited number. At the moment it's only 7 for this episode. For the past one was 22, but I think that was probably a bit too much. And so then for collectors, I will be contacting them if I release any other ones for those episodes, so you get first dibs on them. And really, I think as I continue to build this catalogue of work, we're only on episode 2, remember, then these will become very valuable and very rare digital assets. Not to mention the fact that for the original holder, you also will get to be exposed to my own services for this. So it could be a one-off justice process for the cheaper price ones, or it could be a month of one-on-one creativity and meditation coaching from me for the higher end ones. So I think this is a really wonderful way, it's something that you can invest in that will only become more valuable, and at the same time you get something in exchange right now which is pretty much worth the value that you paid for it. So then when you sell them on, you just basically have had this for free or for a very low exchange. Another thing I just want to touch on, just want to voice, is it has actually been quite challenging for me with the release schedule that I set out for. I intended to release one every month, and right now we've just finished the 4th month of the year, so it's taking about 2 months to do each one, or a little bit more than 2 months to do each one. So this is really interesting for me. I often find as part of my creative process there's 3 stages. There's creating, there's processing, and there's publishing. And whilst the initial episode was published, then I have been caught up and I found resistance to maintain this publishing momentum. So that's really interesting. My intention is the first week of the month the summary episode comes out, then each subsequent week of the month the full creative process videos come out, and then it concludes at the end of the month. So it's not the end of the world. I'm being compassionate and allowing myself to let this happen. There is other stuff going on in my life. However, it's just interesting to voice and note how there is this resistance for me within this publishing process. Say for instance, even this video, I've been meaning to do it for at least 3 weeks, and that's just something that I keep putting off. So for those of you that are following me, know that I plan to work to make the release schedule tighter in future. So there you go, that's it really. Really happy and welcome any questions you have. Please add them in the comments to this video or message me directly with them. And just a couple of things to look out for the future. I'll be bringing social meditation and sound healings, deep dive social meditation and sound healings into the real world, and also taking this justice process into a group setting so that groups can come together, tap into the collaborative consciousness together, and channel these words of wisdom and guidance together in a really connecting and exhilarating and exciting group space. And also in the future, I've already been talking to an amazing guest who is interested in featuring in the first live justice conversation, which will be happening out here in Bali. It will be a chance for audience members to come and join us, to take part in the proceedings, to be crucially valuable with their presence, to hold the energy, to affirm the energy, and who knows where it will go after that as well. So there's a few things in the pipeline that I'm really excited about, and I hope the recording's been okay. My garden isn't particularly quiet. I have a lot of neighbours nearby, so I hope the noise hasn't been too much of an issue. Apologies if it has. And yeah, there we go. Signing off for now. Episode 3 with Shervin will be launching very soon, so keep your eyes peeled to my social media on Instagram, oblongting, to catch the details of that as it comes out. And that's it. I shall leave you there. Sending you lots of love. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye.